Hello, Prim friends. So we are getting a behind the scenes inside this amazing home. And is this what you would call the carriage house? Or what is this portion of?
We built a garage, I put a room on top and I couldn't stop.
Oh, my gosh. It's, yeah, really something.
Ohio had a wood movement clock industry beginning about 1815 and ending about 1835. We've identified 28 different nameplates that appear on Ohio wood movement clocks. I think we have 21 or 22 of them here.
Oh my goodness.
And sometimes you just don't know when to quit.
Yeah. This room is, I want to say magical, but that's not even.
We disassembled an 1821 to 23 side hall house that was destroyed by termites.
Oh.
The first floor was not salvageable, but the second floor up through the framing was. So this is a new building with this second floor frame of that house set inside and then wrapped. So it's a modern building, but this is what you see.
And what are the ceiling boards?
They are poplar.
Okay.
That my wife stained and distressed to color it.
Just gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, I build it, she makes it look good.
You're a great team, for sure. Oh, my. Oh, and this one even says Hartford.
Yes, this was made next
door.
door.
Several. Oh, my gosh. Next door.
Next door. The next old house to the north was the factory. Across the street is Mr. Hart's house. Mr. Trusdale's was torn down about 15 years ago. But the prosperity of the clock industry led to a little mini building boom of 7 or 8 buildings. And after the industry died, only a couple buildings were ever built in the town afterwards.
Was there anything, was there something specific that brought these clockmakers just right here, that this is where they stopped?
No, but the one who begins, a fellow named Lambert Lewis, he's peddling clocks that are New England. Then we get that push of people coming in, and he moved from being a peddler to a maker and supplying peddlers.
Okay.
Clocks actually become money. In a barter economy, let me back up. Up until about 1805, 7, in order to have a clock, you had to spend an awful lot of money. Even the wooden mechanisms were made one at a time, and they were expensive. Eli Terry gets backing from 2 merchants and builds a factory and perfects the machine, and in 3 years he makes 4,000 Clockworks.
Wow.
Which he immediately sells, retires as a rich man and can't keep his fingers out of it and starts trying to build something new. But that mechanism where you have something nobody else has, there's a demand for it, and all of a sudden those barter scales tip in your favor. You have technology, so wealth comes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, wealth comes in the form of I will pay you over time. These guys, I sold all of them. Here's how much I'm owed. Go to the bank. They say, here's how much you can get. You borrow, you do the next batch. And eventually they reach a point where these are outdated, not popular, non-saleable, and they all go bankrupt.
So the style changed, basically.
It will move from this to that little one in the window.
Okay. And about what time did that style shift?
Well, this style is beginning to come in, developing 1821, 22. By 1832, you have larger clocks like the two flanking the window,
Okay.
and a variety of styles. And if you don't adapt and begin to make something in the new style, you perish. And that's
Okay.
what happened to all except for the company here in Hartford. They made shelf clocks for about 3 years, but apparently couldn't compete. By the mid-1830s, the industry changes again as they perfect rolling brass and stamping, and so brass works come in. We get to the OG clock that we're all familiar with.
Okay.
And that's what takes over.
Was there something, out of Europe or something that images or, I mean, we don't, now we have TikTokers and video and
Well,
people that are
there
influencers.
must be something, because we will see the same work on the top of the clocks in the lunettes from many different people.
Okay.
But like this one, as goofy as it looks, they're doing the British coat of arms, because at that point Canada is British, and they're pedaling across Lake Erie
Oh my gosh.
into Canada. One of my architecture students, early architecture, found this in an architecture book from 1804.
Oh, 1804.
Well, that's the book. But by the time they're doing this in between 1826 and 32, that image has somehow made it out here. It's a drawing exercise, a building that was never built. It was 12-foot ceilings, then 8-foot were the little oval windows, and then 12-foot ceilings.
Oh my
The servants were in the 8-foot. Except on this side, it was just a balcony. So this was the music room. The musicians would be there. But I found 2 of these dials. So somewhere there's a portfolio that says this is what you do. This particular one with the eagle, the drum, is very common.
The graining on that one is amazing.
There are about 6 cabinet shops that supply the majority of what I find for Ohio.
Okay.
2 or 3 of them we know where they are. The others we can identify their work and where they're selling, but we don't know who they were. This one, the base tapers in, the graining is very odd. I think we have 3 or 4 of those. This and that one are from the same company. We found 7 that come from this factory. It has little quirks on how they build with the black lines. Very Germanic, both of these.
Okay. And they don't have that intricate scroll
No,
work
they're
at the
flat
top.
tops. This is coming out of an area around Mansfield. We have seen 2, but we don't know who it is. This is Trumbull County. These were mass produced. They look exactly like New England ones, except they are poplar instead, and almost always have these 2 small holes here, which I think has to do with some sort of jig to help them do the top.
Oh, okay.
But these can appear as very simple. In the other corner, we'll have one that's got cheek pieces and fretwork on the top and chamfered. So they have, I guess, economy and up.
So were the faces painted then?
The
by...
faces were painted by local women and girls.
Okay.
These all come from a shop in Lexington, Kentucky, Elijah Warner's shop. And then this is his. On either side of the window back there and in the corner, you'll notice how the top of the door is done.
Right.
Those are coming out of Xenia, Ohio.
Okay.
And Reed Brothers, Reed and Company. And we get some very odd ones. There's a very Germanic one in the corner.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
It almost looks like an owl or a something there at the top.
It looks like a Chippendale mirror on steroids.
Yes, for sure.
And the bottom, well, never mind on the bottom.
Oh, look at that.
There was
It's like pipe organ-y kind
There
of.
was a cabinet maker in Somerset County named, the last name was Nagy. And he used that sort of spindle around one drawer stands, or no drawer stands, but just that spindle gallery around. That's the only thing we've seen that we think is similar, and the feet look very much like that area, but very odd clock. So there are 4 brothers, last name Lewis. 3 of them made, well, actually all 4 of them did clocks. One of them was a merchant, and he seems to have had a facility where he had women painting dials, but he bought the mechanisms from everyone else. That's a mechanism.
Gosh. So we hear about Swiss Clockworks. Is that, or is some of this originating out of Germany and Switzerland?
This is all very much they call it a common clock.
Okay.
Partly because it's not patented. It's common knowledge. Anybody could build one.
Okay.
There was no patent protection to it.
Wow.
Lots of different ways to do it, but basically they're all working from what Eli Terry did, where he figured out how to make a mechanism, fittings, so that he could I'll make 500 of these wheels, then I'll change and I'll make 500 of these, and eventually all the parts, and then assemble the mechanisms.
Okay.
And then these go in a box along with empty tin cans that they use for weights, because you don't want to transport all that weight.
Sure.
You fill it when you get there. A pendulum bob, a rod, a bell for the top, 2 little falling weights that go on the other side. And that's it.
So they were kits?
Yes.
Essentially.
And a peddler would go out. He may stop at a house, or he may stop at a cabinet shop. We know that this guy, that cabinet shop dealt with Hart and Way from Brookfield. So we have a time period there, because they were only in business for 2 years.
Okay.
He has another local maker that show up in his cases. So our assumption is he's within a certain distance of Trumbull County. So we have an idea where they're doing things.
But they didn't sign them. Their signature is in how they did things.
Well,
okay.
but not all of them.
Okay.
Many of them have no signature. But what we found is the numeral shape is a signature of sorts, because they're using a template.
Oh, okay.
So I can tell based on that particular makers. Har and Trusdale, not that one, but the others. The 3 is upside down and sideways.
Oh my gosh.
Some are straight, some are tumbled. They're different shapes to the numerals. And so many things you can just simply look at and know where it came from.
Because they use the same template on all of their.
Well,
you wouldn't
and
redo
when they
it.
wore out, they made another template, but it was never exactly the same.
Okay.
So we have an idea how that changed over time.
Gotcha. Amazing.
But the majority of this is coming out of an area all within 15 miles of Warren. One of the makers owned the rights to the wheel cutting machine and sold a wheel cutting machine to a company in St. Albans, Ohio, which is Granville.
Okay.
And so we have clocks over here that are identical to these because it was the same technology that was sold, but they're all labeled for St. Albans, Ohio. And St. Albans and Har and Trusdale are near enough to the end that they're not selling the novelty or the technology anymore, and they start selling bling. So they're very densely decorated dials.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot
New
of gold
England-
on those.
New England dials are very much, that's not a New England dial, but that's very delicate.
Okay.
We've actually identified the painter on that one.
Oh, wow.
Her work always has these little tiny letters, very delicate work. But we found out that she had worked for Lambert
Oh, and this
Lewis
is Medina.
in Vienna, Ohio,
Okay.
and married Horace Cook, who was a clock employee. She sued Lambert Lewis for $100 and left, and then 10 years later, when they're in Medina, she's decorating dials for her husband.
Wow, wow.
But we can look at things that came from Lambert Lewis factory, and they have this tiny little signature block. We know it was her work.
Okay.
And then tucked over in this corner is the, if you will, Southwestern Ohio. So it's Cincinnati, Xenia, Eaton, Ohio, Lexington, Kentucky. It's an industry that starts stronger because the economy in that part of Ohio was much better in the late teens.
Okay.
It didn't really suffer from the fear from the War of 1812 that stagnated here. And that industry seems to change pretty quickly into the shelf clock industry and abandon tall clocks. I think the last one making it is the one next to the window on the left side, Orlistus Roberts from Eaton, Ohio, and he dies in 1828 building a double barrel covered bridge.
Oh my goodness.
And then his helper marries his wife, so I think there's
Oh.
a CSI Eaton that needs to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh my goodness. They're amazing. And the dials even are, similar, but so,
We don't think of Ohio as having a great history of folk art. And yet you look at this, and we had it.
no doubt. And then to go to the shelf clocks, was it more that it was going to be too, we think now our kids don't really want our heavy furniture. They want to be able to be mobile. They move more, so
This became old-fashioned. That became modern.
modern.
Actually, by 1830, that style, they were considering it old-fashioned, and they wanted more like the one to the right of, or straight in front of the post.
Right in between. That
Yeah.
had the flat top again.
Yeah.
Funny, the styles even with that. And then the ones tucked here, is there?
Well, these are both Trumbull County, but the one I mentioned back there that was the simple version,
Right.
here we have top, sides, chamfered, gold,
Oh gosh, yeah.
all about showing off.
And both Lewis.
Lambert's the older brother. Wheeler, Gary is the youngest brother, who's apparently not very good.
Okay.
And then Gary, who is the merchant who's buying dial or making dials, but buying works from everybody else.
Okay. And so there are some of these clocks in New England as if they were New England clocks, or do
Oh
they?
yes,
they
no, they are several here that we have bought in New England, and up until recently, they thought they were New England
New
clocks,
England clocks.
because the names are the same: Brookfield, Hartford.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, how did you get started on your fascination and love of these clocks?
When we were young, we bought an old house to put back together, this one. And in the local research, it said, or in the local history book, a carding mill was built north of the center, soon after changed into a clock factory. And for many years, a business was done under the name Har and Trusdale. And that just got us started.
My
and
goodness.
If you run into the right people or the wrong people, depending on how you look at it, you can become immersed in these things.
Sure. So how is the value over the years? So
It has plummeted to where they have almost no value.
seriously.
Seriously. Things that were $3,000 to $5,000 or $300 to $500.
Tragic. So if
you remember clocks growing up.
Sure.
Our grandchildren only know of a clock because Grandpa has a lot of clocks.
Yeah, it's on the
I have
it's on their phone. They don't even wear watches, really.
I have employees that can't go on break based on an analog clock. It has to be digital. They never learn to read it. And in general, we have lost a fascination with mechanical things.
Yeah.
Trains and all those things.
Yeah. Even cars now that are silent. There's not the sound that goes with them. With the electric cars. If there was one mysterious clock that's out there that you've not seen, or what would you?
There are
There are
five that I'm looking for.
Okay.
Two of them I have a chance to find. One of them I'll always be able to visit.
Okay.
And one that I completely lost track of.
Oh, wow.
And there's a couple that the written records say it exists, but no one's ever seen them. So if production was small and he wasn't very good, well, they're all scrapped and thrown away.
Oh, my gosh. And is that a particular name of a person, or is it a style? Or
no, it's a name. There was a gentleman who bought the parts to make 1,000 clocks, and his name was Cyrus Gridley, and he was in Boston, Ohio, which is, on the canal.
Sure.
Because the canal was where everybody did business. You were so slow going along that you were trading constantly. The other is a fellow named Asa Scoville, and he appears in the court records that he's basically buying parts that weren't quite right, working on them to get them right, and building clocks and putting his name on them.
Okay.
So they were economy models, I'm sure.
So sort of seconds that
Yes,
he
absolutely.
rehabbed.
Yeah, but
So are all those, that collection of the 1,000, are they out there? Are those,
who
or are
knows?
they?
Who knows?
Okay.
There were advertisements that there was a clockmaker who refused to work on wooden clocks and felt that they were only useful for kindling, but there was enough other stuff they could burn.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Wow. Wow. So I have to ask, you think when you come up you're going to hear the ticking, you're going to hear the
I never
pendulum.
run them. It's not a question of if they'll break, it's when.
Okay.
They're very delicate.
Got it.
If they've made it essentially 200 years, I don't see the reason to press them.
Sure.
I can use a phone like everybody else.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, you have a lot of respect for them, and they've done their work. So now they get to just be beautiful. My goodness. Just stunning. So do you share your knowledge in other places? Do I remember right that you were doing classes somewhere at some point in time?
For about 15 years, I conducted a class at Youngstown State on analyzing early buildings, being able to figure out the story from what's left. And the professor I worked with retired. He's gone now, and so I don't have a batch of young people to drag around.
That's unfortunate.
Well, actually, I had a whole lot more senior citizens come through the class.
I was going to
who
say,
cared.
sign me up.
Well,
Sign me up.
People don't appreciate history until the history they remember begins to disappear.
Sure. Yeah. But then sometimes it's too late.
Yes.
And then we're in a world of hurt. Or they are. All right. Just, yeah. Stunning. The
Whirly gig.
Whirly gig.
is
Yeah.
new.
Okay.
It's new. Folk art's fun.
Very
Gotta
well done. Oh my
support those
goodness. Do you have the name of the artisan that made that?
Yeah, we see him a couple times a year.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Stunning. And I love the tradesman's sign that's here. That's what that is,
Yes,
right? Okay.
yeah.
Beautiful. Just beautiful.
Well, shall we head across the street?
Sounds good. Well, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and keep watching because there's more from this amazing property.